It's Chef Andrea from Del Tech, and I am going to give you a lesson in making gum paste roses. So this is the way of the future. We are video conferencing to make flowers. And you may ask, what are gum paste roses? So I have some here that I've made, and here's a very lovely one. We have just plain with no wire base. You can see the first one was on wire, but either way, it doesn't have to be on wire. And I've got several here, just nice little flowers. They will last forever as long as you don't expose them to a lot of humidity. That will make them sort of melt. Anything that's high sugar will melt with humidity, so just keep them out of the rain. You can make any sizes you'd like, and you can see they're very, if you want really nice lifelike flowers, gum paste is the way to go. Okay. Oh, we've got blue roses. We've got, you can do an entire bouquet of flowers and just keep them. You can do the leaves. You can do any kind of flower at all. The trick is you have to have, go away. Just like being at school. So you can do any kind of flowers, you just have to have the metal cutter to do it. So this is a lily, a stargazer lily if you will, but it's all made of gum paste. So these are basically all edible. Gum paste is edible, but when you go and put it on a wire, then of course that makes it inedible, but they are very pretty. And you can see it is colored with petal dusts. And you can find all sorts of colors of petal dusts online. You can get luster dusts, any kind of dusts. And you can, it's not really used to color the gum paste. It's more to give it a finishing touches afterwards. So start with white gum paste, that's your best bet. And then you can paint it any way you want to after you've gotten your flower made. Okay, so, and I will also say that after they are made, they are very fragile. It's almost like porcelain is what it reminds me of. So don't go dropping it on your granite countertop because it will shatter. But if you just keep them in a box, and honestly, I just keep mine in an egg carton just for safekeeping, and they're fine. They will last for a really long time. All right, so I have put together over the years this gum paste kit, and it contains, let me see if I can get everything out, and I'm going to tilt the camera down so that you can see a little better. More tilting, here we go. All right, so we've got the mat, got a piece of styrofoam, just any old piece of styrofoam. I have, and this is like the best invention ever. I went to the CIA and took a class in making gum paste flowers, and this was like the best trick ever, is you take a knee-high stocking and cut off the top, and you put cornstarch in it. So that's all it is. You don't have to buy anything fancy, just a knee-high stocking, and this is what you're gonna use for dusting your table. And you can also use this when you're working with fondant, same thing. So we've got the pad, we've got small dowels, and I call these rolling pins, okay, a medium size, which is good because you're not gonna be rolling out large amounts of gum paste, just small amounts, and this is fine for just doing small, tiny little things. So I just keep both of those in the pack. And then we have 5 gum paste tools. And it used to be you could buy this set readily at any of the craft stores, but I think that Wilton has sort of upgraded. And now if you want to buy a gum paste kit, it's got all sorts of pieces of equipment in there that you probably won't use. The most important tool that you will use, and you may not even use any of these, is the ball tool. So, and there are actually 2 ball tools in here. One has almost like a hand on the end, and one just has a small ball and the larger ball. So either of these, you're gonna use this all the time. So if you have nothing else, you at least wanna get a ball tool. And you can buy these individually online, of course. If you really enjoy making gum paste flowers, then invest in a metal ball tool. It just seems to work better. It's got a little more weight to it. So the plastic ones are fine for beginners, but if you really decide you like to do this, get a metal ball tool. So that's the 5 pieces there. And as I said, anytime you make any gum paste flowers, you have to have a set of cutters. And you can, again, go online and you can, any kind of flower at all. You can make hydrangea, you can make the lilies, you can make roses, of course, any flower, and you'll find a cutter for it. So this is, maybe I should put it up here. This is how I prefer to make flowers, with a rose petal cutter set. And I believe that this is from PME. It's about $5, I think, for the set of 4 cutters. But this is only one way to make roses. I'm also giving you, this is called a 5-petal cutter. This is another way to make roses. And this is a relatively new one on the market. It is called the Easiest Rose Ever Cutter. I didn't make that up. There's no shorter name for it either. So if you prefer this method, you can get this one too. This, I think they're lying when they say it's the easiest rose cutter ever. I just always go back to this method. This would be my second choice, but this is what I was taught. And you know, so whatever you're comfortable with, I'll demo each way to make a rose, okay? So I'm gonna put those 2 off to the side. What else do we have in the gum paste kit? I do have some written directions on how to make it using both the 5-petal cutter and using the individual. So you do have something to help you along, okay? The other thing that you're going to need in advance, if you want to put your flower on wire, is to go ahead and make yourself up a cone, which is the center of the rose. Hopefully you can see it. It's just a cone. That's it. Just like you did with buttercream, you made a cone in the center of your buttercream rose. You also do it with gum paste, and you do it with modeling chocolate too. So you just make your cone and you put it on a piece of wire. That's it, let it dry. So now it's nice and hardened. And this is why we have the styrofoam. You stab your piece of wire into the styrofoam so that your rose can dry there. So I have the 2 of them here. Okay, so that's why we have that. So let's make a rose. You know, to clear everything off. Okay, I need the stocking. I do not need that right now. I need the ball tool, basics. And I do actually need the directions, not because I'm gonna read the directions, but the directions are important for another reason. So as far as your gum paste, I definitely prefer the satin ice. Many companies now make gum paste, so it's whatever you like to use. And I have just a chunk here. I think I gave, everybody in your kits should have like 3 ounces of gum paste. So that's plenty for making a rose. 2 roses, even 3 roses. Okay, so I'm just gonna break off a piece. It's probably 1/3 of it or less, just a little bit, doesn't matter how much. I'm gonna keep the rest of it wrapped up. So whatever you're not using, you need to keep it covered with plastic wrap or wrapped up somehow, because it will dry out. Okay, so I'm gonna go ahead and roll this out. I'm gonna use my stocking. See, it's a great invention. And my big rolling pin, and I'm gonna roll it. Now, the part of the thing with gum paste flowers of any kind is that they are so delicate and they are very lifelike. There are books out there of gum paste roses you just wouldn't even believe are made of gum paste. Any kind of roses. And unfortunately, I'm not much of a gardener, so I don't know the different kinds, but it's just incredible how beautiful they are and how lifelike, how thin they are. So that's part of the deal with gum paste. So when you roll it out, that's why you have this piece of paper. You're going to roll it out. You want to be able to see the writing through the gum paste. So I'm not thick enough. I can't see the writing. If you happen to have a pasta machine at home, that's a great way to roll out your gum paste. But for those of us just starting out, just keep rolling it until now I can see. I mean, obviously I can't read the words, but I do see lines, which is where the writing is. So that's how thin I want it to be. As soon as you can see the writing, you're good. All right, so now I can put the directions away. I'm going to cut out You know what? I've got the 4-petal set here. You can't see it. There we go. So I've got 4 petals here. I'm going to take away the largest and the smallest. I don't need them right now. So it's the 2 medium-sized ones that makes a nice sized rose. Of course, if you wanted to make a bigger rose, you'd have a bigger center. Or if you wanted to make a smaller rose, you have a smaller center. So we'll stick with this. So I'm going to cut out, I think I'll do the larger of the 2. It's up to you which one you want to do. I'm going to cut out 9 petals. So just cut them out, put them here anywhere. And they are sharp. So I probably have a petal marker on my hand now. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and 9. Okay. So I'm going to ball this up, stick it back in with my other batch, keeping it covered at all times. I also want to keep these petals covered too. So I'm going to use the pad, but I'm going to keep it covered with plastic wrap. Stuff dries out really, really quickly, which is good. And that's sort of the difference between using fondant to make flowers and using gum paste to make flowers. Fondant is much softer. Your rose is going to stay softer longer. If you think somebody's going to eat your roses, I would probably go with fondant. These are edible. They don't taste great, but they are edible. Okay, so we'll just take one to start with. So now you're going to use your ball tool, either of the tools, but use the medium-sized ball. Doesn't really matter, just not the tiny little one. And you're going to put your flower, your petal on the pad, and you're going to hold this like it's a pencil. Okay, you don't need to hold it anything like this, just as if it was a pencil, and you're going to do some writing. Okay, so what you're doing now is you're going to thin the edge of the petal. So you're just going to go back and forth and back and forth. You are not going to go in the center of the petal at all. You are just going to stay on the very edge. So I like to say that the ball tool is like half on the blue mat and half on the flower. Don't be inside only on the white, because you're not trying to thin the inside of the petal. It's the edge. If you look at rose petals, they're so thin, all flowers, so thin. So that's the beauty of gum paste. So just go back and forth, and I'm pressing kind of hard. It tends to curl a little bit, that's good. I do not care about the base of the petal, because nobody's gonna see that. That's gonna get attached to the center. It's just this edge. So back and forth, just till you get a little ruffle on it. Let's see, can you see? Can you see? Just very thin. I'm going to even come in a little bit closer. If you press too hard, you may rip the petal, so you don't want to do that. But if you're not pressing hard enough, then you're not thinning the petal. So just give it a couple of back and forth and back and forth. And like I said, you're half on the blue mat and half on the white petal. So when you get your first petal done, you can take your rose center, and you just need a little bit of water as your glue. All right, so the first petal is a little bit different. I got my fingers wet, not soaking wet, but just so this is a little sticky wet. And you're gonna make sure you wipe off your fingers, because if your fingers are wet, the petal is going to stick to you, not the center. So many times I just kind of dab my fingers on the cornstarch too. So you take your first petal, this is the only one you're going to do this with, and you hold it sideways. Okay, so it's not standing up like a petal. This is a hard white jacket, white gum paste. Hadn't thought about that. Okay, so hold it sideways, and you're going to wrap it around the cone. And I don't know if you can see exactly what I'm doing. I'll do it backwards. You just wrap it around the cone. You're higher than the cone. Your goal is to hide the cone. So nobody wants to see the cone. Keep that in mind. The cone is ugly. So if you look at a real rose, the center is this cone, and then it spirals out from there. So that's your goal, is to hide the cone. And you are coming up just a little bit above the cone. And just kind of stick that petal on there as best as you can. All right, and then you can stab it back there into the styrofoam. The next row of petals will be 3. So you can take all 3 of these out at the same time. Keep those guys covered up. And you can come back and ruffle the edge, if you will. Thin the edge, just the edge. So kind of back and forth. And you'll see, if it's not doing anything, then press a little harder. And just do all 3. Yes. At the same time. Keep the other ones under plastic wrap. And you can see they're getting a little bit of a ruffle, meaning they're nice and thin. Just hold the tool as if it was a pencil. So you'll know, you don't want to rip it. There are other effects that you can do on it, but you're just trying to really, really thin out that edge. That's what makes it a lifelike flower. All right, so back to the water. Just be careful where you have the water in your area, because the water is going to make the gum paste stick to anything, your fingers or whatever. So let me grab my rose. This is the one that has the cone on it. Okay, and I'm going to just a little tiny bit of water, sort of at the base, maybe halfway up the petal, no more. And I need just a little more. It's good to have paper towels nearby, because if you put too much water on, it's going to stick to you. And again, wipe off your fingers. You don't want to have that water. Dab your fingers in the cornstarch, so then you know nothing's going to stick to you. So your first petal is going to be, you just kind of put it on. You're sticking it at the base. Important things to remember. All your petals should be about the same height as the center cone. People tend to make the first row of petals too high, and you really want to just keep everything as close as you can to the same height. You don't want it to be too low either. That cone should not be higher than the rest of the rows. So just looking at it, kind of get it even. All right, and it should stick because you got it damp. And the next one should still be damp, I can see, because it is shiny, and you just put that on. So you know this first row of petals is just going to be 3. So just stick it on there. And then number 3, stick that one on there too. And if you can tuck petal number 3 underneath petal number 1. And that's your start. You got 3 petals. You can adjust them a little bit. I like to go back and look at the height and make sure they're all about the same height, because you have a couple of minutes to do that before it dries, and then you can't do anything. So I'm happy with that. It's a start. You can adjust them a little bit more. So that's 4 petals down, 1 for the center, and 3 for the first row of petals.